Welcome to today's core devotional as we talk about week 38, Ascension. I recently finished a book called The River of Doubt, and it's about Theodore Roosevelt's journey through the Amazon, his last great adventure. And as I read the book, and it's really a biographical work, and they described his travel across the country of Brazil as he made his way to the headwaters of the River of Doubt on an epic adventure to chart, survey, and observe the wildlife down an unknown river. Well, they needed to get to the very top of the river, which was obviously up in elevation, and so they took an overland convoy through the Brazilian highlands and plateaus in order to get all their gear to the top of the River of Doubt. Now, what was so fascinating about it was the oxen and mule train that traveled overland was something that had really never been seen by the local populace. And they were astounded at the sight of miles of oxen and mules moving just boxes and boxes of cargo. And it drew, obviously, just huge attention by all the people really in Brazil and the whole South American continent. What's so fascinating, though, is as we look at how Roosevelt traveled, this dignitary, and we think about the travels of our dignitaries today, and what does it look like for them? Well, they're often traveling in limos with police escorts, and there's flags flying everywhere, and crowds gather. Sometimes there's music, or there's announcements in the news or the media leading up to the arrival of these dignitaries. And these are pretty important people, obviously, to get this kind of fanfare. But as we look at today's key passage, Revelation 1:7, what we're going to see is the greatest fanfare that has ever existed. So let me read this passage for you. It comes out of Revelation chapter 1, verse 7, and it's talking about Jesus and his second coming. Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn because of him. So shall it be. Now, let's take a really quick break. And just the book of Revelation, I think, can be a really confusing book, but it was written with a very specific purpose. And I love the way that Matthew Henry talks about it. So let me share some of his words. He says in his introduction to Revelation, "From the beginning, the church of God has been blessed with prophecy. That glorious prediction of breaking the serpent's head was the stay and support of the patriarchal age. And the many prophecies that were concerning the Messiah to come were the gospel of the Old Testament. Christ himself prophesied of the destruction of Jerusalem, and about the time in which that was accomplished, he entrusted the Apostle John with this book of Revelation to deliver it to the church as a prediction of the most important events that should happen to it and to the end of time, for the support of the faith and of his people and the direction of their hope." Let me read that again. "For the support of the faith of his people and the direction of their hope." So as we approach anything in Revelation, let's try to approach it understanding that this is designed and intended to build our faith and our hope and keep our eyes fixed forward. So let's come back to this Jesus arriving. These dignitaries and Theodore Roosevelt that created such attention and such just glamour and glory from the locals and from the media. And even today, I think of when the Pope visited in 2015 and he went to Philadelphia. I don't know if you remember that, but the streets were packed for miles and miles and miles, shoulder to shoulder, of people just trying to catch a glimpse of him. It was an incredible turnout and response. When Jesus comes back, nothing will compare. no dignitary's arrival that has happened in the past or will happen to the end of time will compare to what Jesus will bring, because it says that every single eye will be fixed on him. Now, logistically, I don't know how that's going to happen. We live on a round world, so if you come back on this point, I don't know how down here you're going to see him, but he is the authority of all the earth. And so, he can defy physics if he wants to. That's totally up to him. And so we don't have to be able to explain that, but we can trust fully that his return will draw the attention of all. And what's going to happen is, all the people that exist will be confronted with the reality that they've either embraced or denied, which is why it says those who've pierced him and all the peoples of the earth will mourn because of him. Because at some point they made a choice to either deny him or embrace him. And so, when he returns, for the friends of God, it will be a time to celebrate. For the enemies of God, there's going to be a lot of mourning. And so that just begs the question, what do we do with this? If you're listening in and you're a believer, there's a very specific charge for you. And if you're listening in and you're not sure about this whole faith thing, we implore you to take it seriously and to really investigate hard, because he loves you and he wants you. But for those of us who are already committed to this cause, as Henry said, it should be a source of hope. He is coming. All this hard work is going to pay off. And it gives us mission and purpose for now. We have got to, we don't want our enemies to perish. It's in total contradiction with the rest of the world and societies and cultures where you defeat enemies. We want to save enemies. And that is our mission. We want to make it a day of true celebration for as many people as possible. So, Jesus, he rose, he ascended, and he is going to come back. He will come back. And this prophesies and calls out that it will happen. For now, let's keep our eyes fixed on that. Let's put our hope in that reality. And let's stay on mission to make sure that we can save as many people as possible. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great rest of your week.